everyone, thanks for joining us again for this, the latest in our At Home With series. This is a series of films that we're recording during the coronavirus pandemic, a time when more than ever our state of mind is critically important to our overall health and well-being. Each week we're speaking to another member of the State of Mind team, and this week we're absolutely privileged to be joined by another one of our presenters, and that's Ian Knott. Knotty, first of all, mate, how are you doing at the moment?
You know what, surprisingly, I'm very good under the situation we're in at the moment, but you know, the family and everyone else around us, you know, we're pushing through and we're doing well.
Good stuff, mate. It's good to hear. So Ian, let's start at the beginning in terms of your rugby league relationship and career. So tell me a bit about your early days in the sport. How did you get involved in it? And then you know, cover off your career path for us. What clubs did you go to, and what level did you play at?
Okay, well, I started probably as about an 8-year-old, like most kids do nowadays. It was my dad who got me into it, you know, and it was coming through school. It was either rugby or football for me. You know, I was reasonably good at both, and I had quite a few football clubs interested as well. But for me, I was a defender in football, and I much preferred the contact. You know, if anyone got past me, I brought them down. You know, I was quite physical, so. I came to, I think it was about 14, and Warrington became interested in me. And for me, it was a no-brainer. At the time, we also had Oldham Athletic who were interested. They were pushing to get into the Premier League. But for me, it was rugby league, definitely, because, you know, for one, I weren't very good at skills at football, but I was very physical, which they liked. And for me, I just preferred the physicality of rugby than I did football. Obviously signed for Warrington. Throughout my whole junior career, though, I played pretty much most of my junior career with Paul Sculthorpe Scully. So it was interesting when they both signed for the same club. You know, we both progressed into the first team together. He went on to bigger and better things. I stayed at Warrington, which I'm happy about. Don't get me wrong. I love Warrington. I really do. It's a team I support now, which is weird being as I'm an Oldhamer, you know, but. I really enjoyed my time at Warrington. Unfortunately, after 9 years at Warrington, it was time for me to move on. I signed for Wakefield for 2 years. Had a really good time there. We were fighting relegation both times, you know, but the camaraderie and the team spirit there was something that, you know, I didn't always see at Warrington. And then for my last 2 years in rugby, I signed for Leeds Centurions, and the first season was unreal. It really was, you know. I was lucky enough to captain the team. And we went on to win the treble. We won 3 trophies and qualified for Super League. So that's my career in a nutshell. I also represented Great Britain under 21s and academy.
Fantastic. So you played at a really high level and for a number of big clubs as well. What do you consider to be perhaps the biggest moment or the biggest achievement of your career? Was it that treble winning season?
It probably was, yeah. You know, throughout my career, they're the only real trophies that I won. Yeah, albeit it was the division below, but you know, a lot of people say, you know, it must be much easier down in that league. To be honest, it isn't, because if you're an ex-Super League player, you've got a target on your back. You know, so anytime you get into a tackle, you know, there's 3 or 4 men in there. You know, they're scratching your nuts, they're poking you in the eyes, they're doing all sorts. You know, it's not like Super League where it's fast. You know, it's a hell of a lot slower, you know, so it was a difficult season, you know, but it was worth it, you know, because of the reward at the end, obviously winning 3 trophies.
Fantastic, what a moment. So I'll turn to a question we've had in from one of our own, actually, Dr. Phil Cooper. He's obviously a massive Warrington fan, and he asks, over the 9 seasons you were at Warrington, Ian, who would you say were the best 3 players that you played alongside?
Ooh. Good question, Phil. I didn't get to play with one of them for long, but the first one has got to be Jonathan Davis, Jiffy. You know, what he could do with a rugby ball, honest to God, he was amazing. He really was. He was so light on his feet. You know, you could have like a half a metre gap, and he was only small. He was only a small fella. You'd see him in the change rooms. There's nothing on him, but he just flew through those gaps. You know, he was unbelievable. The second, I'd have to say, I've already mentioned him, it'd be Paul Sculthorpe. You know, I played with him throughout my whole junior career, like I said, and then at Warrington, you know, he was something else when he came through the first team. He broke into the first team a year before me, and he was amazing when he first broke through. You know, and he obviously carried that on, and he went on to become a double Man of Steel winner. You know, he was a fantastic player. really was. And then the third would have to be Alfie, Alan Langer. For me, for someone who had just come over from Australia, and with the greatest of respects, during my time at Warrington, and Bill will probably accept this as well, there's some Aussies and Kiwis who came over who perhaps come over for a bit of a holiday or a bit of a payday, you know, but Alfie's probably one of the biggest names that you'll hear of in rugby league, and he came over and he was brilliant, you know. For someone so experienced as him, I remember his first game, he played Hunslet away, and he was throwing up like you wouldn't believe, and I thought to myself, God, if he's throwing up against Hunslet, you know, what's the crack here, you know, but honestly, God, he was brilliant. You know, if you just run into a gap, he'd find you. You know, he is probably the best player I've played with.
So with Alan, what was the being sick thing? Was that just almost a pre-match kind of nerves thing? What was it?
Yeah, it would have been, because I was the same. You know, throughout my career, I used to throw up before a game, which we now, when we go into talks and everything, we say it's not ideal, but because you're wasting energy. But yeah, if, like I said, first time I saw him, in the changing rooms in Hunslet, there was this bin right in the middle of it. And about 3 minutes to go before kick-off, he just got up from his seat and just put his head down this bin and just threw up everywhere. And that was pretty much the story of his career at Warrington. You know, every time I saw him in the changing rooms, he'd run off to the toilets, put his head down the bog and throw up. You know, thankfully I'd already been, otherwise I'd have been throwing up all over the changing rooms. But yeah, I think it's just must either just be a ritual for him or a nerves thing. For me, I was kind of worried if I wasn't sick, because I think to myself, oh well, I'm going to have a bad game now because I mustn't be nervous enough. You know, because I used to like nerves. If I wasn't nervous, then I'd worry. So it might have been a similar thing for him.
When you just to finish on that, Ian, when you play alongside guys like Alan and Scully and others that you've mentioned, you know, top players, you know, is there more than one effect that can have on you as one of their teammates? You know, can it both inspire you, but also can it sometimes set you back and give you a bit of a reality check? What's the sort of impact on you as a player?
A bit of both, really. The second one, where it gives you a reality check, that's more in training, because you see how these players train, and if you're not pulling your weight in training, or if, for instance, the day before a game you have a ball work session, and these players expect perfection. You know, they expect you to go through these ball work sessions without any drop ball, and if there's a drop ball, they'll roll at you big time. You know, so in that respect, it really make you up your game, and you know, if you're not on form, then they'll let you know about it. But in the other aspect, they bring the best out of you. You know, because they'll take these players are special. Not only are they special on the field, but off the field as well. Because if you're not performing, they'll come and talk to you, and they'll give you. They won't give you a bollocking off the field for that. You know, they'll just have a quiet word with you and just say you need to do this. You know, you need to improve on this, and you know, they're really helpful not only on the field but off the field. But when you get on the pitch with them, that's where you see how special they are.
Great stuff. So for those that don't know your backstory and how your career kind of came to an end, tell us a little bit about that and ultimately how life has had to change for you since your playing days ended.
It was actually during the 2004 season, which was the first season with Lee. We were halfway through the season, and we played Halifax away, and I just took a ball up, got tackled, and there was nothing in the tackle. It wasn't a bad tackle, but as I tried to get up, I felt these really bad pains in my back and going down my leg. Excuse me. And for me, it felt like the best way to describe it, like my foot was in a bucket of ice water. These pains, you know, I didn't recognise them. Now, us rugby players, we are a bit stupid, you know. We do tend to carry on playing with daft injuries. Not like footballers, you get stretched off with the rips off. You know, we carry on with it. But with this one, I knew there was something wrong, so I come off. I got an MRI scan, and then I discovered that I had a prolapse disc, quite a large prolapse disc at L5S1. So I had a meeting with the medical staff and everything, and I decided, rugby players being rugby players, all we want to do is play. So I carried on playing the rest of the season with a slipped disc. Now, to say that was difficult would be an understatement. You know, the pain was shocking. Monday to Friday, I could hardly get out of bed. But on a Saturday I'd do a ball work session. On a Sunday I'd play with the injections in my back. It ended up, like I said, ended up being successful because we won the treble. But when I had an operation at the end of the season, which was a success. Started the next season in Super League. I think we're about 10 games into the Super League season, and as a club we weren't doing well, we were getting battered. But I was quite happy with my performance, whether it's because my back had been freed up or what, I don't know, but I was playing quite well, so I thought. And then we got a break from Super League and it was a Challenge Cup weekend, and coincidentally we played Halifax again. Halifax isn't the best place, as you can probably tell. And I took the ball up again. This time I got clotheslined, so my legs went from underneath me and landed on my spine again. Now these pains just came flooding back, and from that point I had another operation on the slip disc at a different level. It was L4. And then unfortunately, well, the surgeon told me in no certain terms that I won't be able to play rugby again. And he thought that I wouldn't be able to work again. But I thought, well, I'll prove you wrong. I'll go and get a normal job like everyone else. But unfortunately, I had to have another further 3 operations. So that's 5 back operations in the space of 3 years. So that's how my injury went. And from that point, obviously, that's how I started to develop, mental problems as well.
So just talk us through that side of it, if you don't mind, Ian. What, because when someone's not had an injury or a sort of physical kind of impact on their life like you've had, they probably struggle to understand how that can then almost certainly lead on to mental health issues and problems. So tell me a little bit about how that worked itself through with you.
For me, basically, it was like, the way I try and describe it is, it was an identity loss for me, because I was known as Ian Knott, the rugby player. And all I knew from the moment I had my 3rd operation, my 4th operation, I developed a condition called failed back surgery syndrome. And from that point, I was pretty much bedridden. My wife ended up having to give up her job to care for me. She had to wash me and dress me and things like that. It was, that was how severe the state was. And just looking at the same 4 walls all the time, it just, I couldn't cope with it. I really couldn't. I was in agony and I couldn't move. And for someone who was a professional athlete, trained 3 times a day, to all of a sudden being bedridden, it's a massive shock to the system. It's a complete 180. And I really couldn't cope with it. I just couldn't, from me being Ian Knott, the rugby player, to then looking in a mirror at the side of my bed, to seeing this shell looking back at me. I just didn't recognise the person looking back at me. I really didn't. And that had a massive effect on me, massive effect.
Did it manifest itself in other sort of mental health ways, other conditions, other things that you were experiencing?
Well, eventually it did. I became severely depressed because of this. I also had a morphine pump fitted. The pain was that bad, I had a morphine pump fitted to try and ease the pain. And the way they kind of told me this would work is, you get this pump fitted and, you're going to get your life back, you're going to be able to go out and do more things, you're not going to be bedridden anymore. So it was like I was on this massive high before I went in for the surgery, because I had this trial for 2 weeks and the pain relief was amazing. Because at the time I was taking 40 tablets a day. I was taking morphine patches. I was drinking liquid morphine, and from that, I had the trial for the pump, and because the operation wasn't until probably another 3 or 4 months later, I got used to the amount of morphine that was inside me. So when I went in for the operation for the pump didn't work. So I came out from having this massive high to this massive low again, from going through depression, from going through suicide attempts. And then from that point, I started to hear voices. So it did manifest into something else. I developed psychosis, and, these voices, these were strange. I did not like them, and they were very threatening, and very worrying as well.
So you've been through the mental health mill as a result of a very kind of physical injury in the first instance, Ian. How do you kind of reflect on that now? Because hopefully as time has kind of moved on, you've been able to, I guess, put a bit of distance between incidents. But Yeah, how do you reflect on your injury now? Particularly now you're sort of engaged with State of Mind and the work you do with us, but also, you know, at the current time we've got a lot of time available, I guess, to be sitting and reflecting. So yeah. What's your outlook?
It's probably flipped again. Another 180. You know, I look back on my career now, fondness, and now I'm no longer Ian Knott, the rugby player. But now I am Ian Knott, the husband, the father, you know, mental health advocate. You know, I'm now a complete new person. And from everything I've been through my rugby career, including the injuries, you know, including my attempted suicide, you know, the voices, I'm thankful for that now in a strange way. It might sound strange, you know, but I'd go through all that again, you know, to get me to the point where I am now, because I'm in the best place I think I've ever been mentally. You know, and that is down to me being open now and being brave enough to talk about my problems when they arise. You know, I've had fantastic help with my family. You know, my wife's been absolutely amazing. She really has. She's been a saint to me. You know, so on reflection, it may sound really silly, but I'm glad everything that's happened, because the person that I am now, I believe, is a better person than the one before my injuries and just after my career finished.
You mentioned about being an advocate for mental health and for resilience and all of those things that as a charity, I guess we kind of go out and spread the message around. What you particularly have found quite a lot of sort of benefit in mindfulness, haven't you? And
yes, I have.
Tell us a little bit about that. How do you actually utilize mindfulness for your particular kind of set of circumstances?
Well, I've used it a couple of times already during this period. You know, with the kids being home all the time, you know, it can get a bit stressful. So I'll nip upstairs and I'll put the headphones on, because for me, how it helps me most is you can get DVDs, sorry, not DVDs, CDs, and download things on your iPads and whatnot. And the relaxation I get from it is unreal. You know, some of these sessions that I listen to, literally, I can be in pain before I put my headphones on, and then when I wake up after it, because you do end up nodding off, I feel literally no pain for about 10 or 15 seconds. It is that good. Obviously, the pain ends up coming back, but it just relaxes you so much, and then it refreshes your body, and you wake up, and you know, it's like you're from the person who put the headphones on to the person who takes them off. You're a complete different person, and you start looking at the world in a different place, in a different way.
Amazing. Well, we'll come on to sort of the current situation that everyone's facing and advice around that towards the end, I think. But it's incredible that you're getting such tangible results, I think, from mindfulness. I think for a lot of people, it, you know, feels perhaps a little kind of out there, and, you know, will it actually do anything for me? But I mean, it's amazing to hear how much you're getting from it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. When I first tried it, it was the NHS who put me through for it at first. Because I'd gone through counselling, I'd gone through CBT, and nothing was working for me. So they said, well, try mindfulness. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what's this? So I go to the first session, and the first session, they tell you to sit there and close your eyes, and these breathing techniques, and they put one of these body scans on, excuse me, these CDs that I was talking about. So I'm listening to the CD, and it's supposed to be really quiet and really, you know, take it all in. And next to me, I'm in a room with strangers, and next to me is this guy, and he's all these breathing. I'm thinking to myself, honest to God, because at the time I weren't doing well mentally, so I thought to myself, if he doesn't shut up in a minute, I'm going to throw him through a window. He was doing my head in. So from that session, I came away and I thought, nah, it's no good for me, this. I can't cope with it. So my wife, thankfully, she said, look, try it out for one more go. You've got to give it a go, because everything else has failed so far. So I took her advice. I went back the next week. Thankfully, this guy wasn't there. And from that point, my journey with mindfulness has been nothing but success, because it was absolutely amazing for me. It really was.
Hope that guy's watching. Awesome. Okay, thanks, Ian. So in terms of the work that you now do with us with State of Mind, how did you first sort of come across the charity, and what was it that maybe inspired you to get involved to the level that you now have? And just to append to that as well, how did you adapt to working for the charity? You know, was it kind of instant, or did it actually take a while to become comfortable with the work that you do for us?
Okay, well, I actually came about to know the charity. It was actually at a grand final. It must be about 7.5 years ago now, I think. And I saw Jimmy Gittins in the car park after the grand final, and I was chatting away to Jimmy because I knew Jimmy from the Rugby League Benevolent Fund. So I was chatting away to Jimmy, and I didn't know the guy who was with him. So I wasn't being rude, obviously, because I was talking to Jimmy, but my wife ended up talking to him, and it was Phil Cooper, one of the organisers of State of Mind. So I got into the car afterwards. I said bye to him. I introduced myself to Phil, and obviously said bye to him. And then in the car going back, Danielle, my wife, she started talking, saying he wants us to do talks for his charity called State of Mind. I told him all about your mental problems. And at the time, I didn't want anyone to know about my mental issues. So I kind of gave her a bit of a roasting. You know, I said, "What are you doing telling him?" You know, I didn't want anyone to know. But thankfully, she told me so. I ended up contacting Phil. And he said, "Come along to the next session. We've got Dennis Goldthorpe's doing a talk." And it was at, I can't think where it was at now. It was in St Helens. So I went in to watch, and it was brilliant. You know, what Danny did was amazing. It really was. And it took me back a bit. And I thought to myself, if I can do this, you know, it might make me feel better, because looking at Danny now, he looks so happy. So I talked it over with Phil, what I should talk about and what have you. And then I did my first talk. Again, I think that might have been in St Helens, to some National Health nurses. And my God, I was bricking it. I was absolutely bricking it. For about 3 days before, I couldn't sleep. As I got there, I was bricking it. When I did the talk, I felt amazing. Honestly, God, the relief I got was unbelievable. But it was a massive adrenaline dump. You know, afterwards, I felt knackered again. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I can do this, because I felt more sick afterwards, because I'd probably spoken about my story for the first time than what I did before it. And again, I said to my wife, you know, I don't know if I can do it again. And my wife, being the good listener she is, and she's always full of, you know, good answers, she just said to me, "Look, you've got to carry on. You've got to keep on doing this. I know what's good for you, and this will be good for you." So thankfully for me, you know, I did carry on. And it probably took a good 6 to 8 months, if not a year, for me to get used to doing it. You know, I still got the adrenaline dumps afterwards. But now, you know, I absolutely love doing it. And if anything, I treat State of Mind now as a form of counselling for me, because I used to go and see a counsellor to talk about my problems, come away, feel a lot better. Whereas now I can go to a State of Mind session, hopefully help someone in the process, but me knowing in the back of my head that, importantly, I'm helping myself, more importantly.
That's amazing for us to hear, I think, as a charity, because we, obviously it's easy sometimes to take for granted, I think, what you guys who are on the front line of our work do, but actually, you know, it's great to hear that it's a cathartic experience and therapeutic for you guys, you know, going up there every time and sharing those stories, because you know, I've seen yourself, I've seen Danny and Jimmy and others talk numerous times, and every time it's that little bit different. You can recall different elements of it, you know, and this is very, very personal stuff as well that you share. So I think it's you know, thank you, and thank all of you for doing what you do for us. And yeah, no, fantastic that you get from it as well. Have you got memories of particular sessions you've been involved in, Ian, that stick in the memory for any reason? Perhaps a bit of feedback you got, or a connection made with a particular audience member?
Probably a couple spring to mind. The first one would probably be, I think it might have only been my second or third session, and it was in Warrington, and it so happened that the panorama cameras were there, and from that it resulted in me being part of a panorama program, you know, on suicide and men's mental health. So that sticks in the mind for one. A second one would be one that I did for Yorkshire Police, and a lady who was a police constable. It was her husband, and she came up to me afterwards and said that talk was amazing. You know, my husband is really bad at the moment. He's got a bad back. He was a policeman, or he's a policeman, but he's been laid off, and he's struggling with mental health problems now. So I asked her to give me his number, So I rang him. She asked me if I could ring him, so I said, yeah, no problem. So I rang the guy, and I had probably about a 25 minute, half an hour talk with him, and I got feedback a couple of months later that he was in a much better place and he was hopefully going to be going back to work. So that felt amazing for me, it really did. And then the third one, I think the most important one for me would probably be the world record that we won with State of Mind. To talk in front of nearly 1,000 people, my God, that was nerve-wracking. I played in front of a lot more people than that, but to talk in front of 1,000 people, God, I was bricking it. But the result at the end of it was amazing. The audience were fantastic. They really were. So they're probably been the three best highlights.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, and the very same pitch and stadium that you have performed on in front of thousands of people was where the world record was held. Yeah. And that's lovely as well that, that in the case of the policeman that you helped, it's an exact parallel, isn't it, with your story? It's someone who's it's an enforced career change or career loss. It's a loss of identity as a result of injury.
Exactly.
Let's just sort of move on as we finish up now on to the current situation. You're obviously missing, I'm sure, the face-to-face sessions that we do with State of Mind at the moment. But what does lockdown life look like in the Knott household? You've got kids, I believe. So yeah, yes. What's day-to-day life doing for at the moment?
Without mindfulness, I think it'd be very stressful. To be honest with you, but no, it's good to be fair. I've gone from being, obviously, like I said before, a rugby player, but talking about mental health to now I'm now the kids' hairdresser. I'm a secondary school teacher. I'm a fitness instructor for them, and I'm also an umpire for badminton and table tennis. That's kind of my role at the moment. Anytime the boys want to do something, it's always, Dad, come here. So for me, it can be quite hectic. So I do end up having the odd day or two having to lie down, the odd back pain, but it's worth it because with kids being at school all the time, you don't get to spend this much time with the kids. So to be out in the back with them, doing things with them like that, even though I can't take part in the tasks, just watching them doing this, it's brilliant. So that is definitely one good thing to come out of all this situation.
Obviously, a lot of the world are waiting, or a lot of the UK certainly are waiting to hear when lockdown might start to lift or restrictions might ease. You're, as I guess, in a vulnerable category, and you're in a slightly different situation with lockdown. So tell me a little bit about that, and then what advice would you give to people? Obviously, perhaps this isn't a brand new experience for you in terms of being holed up at home. So what advice would you give to other people who are perhaps struggling a bit at the moment with isolation?
You're spot on there, because my life pretty much does revolve in my house. I don't get out much as it is, like you say. I get out and I'll do talks. I'm by no means as active as all the other presenters. They do a lot more than me. It's a case of if and when I can do them. But for me, how I cope with that is, basically talking. No matter what the issue is, if I can't get out much, if I can't do a State of Mind session, I feel like for instance now during this lockdown, I can tell that I've not talked for a long time. I can feel myself at times beginning to get sunk into, feeling a bit low. So I just get things off my chest, talk to my wife, and straight away it makes me feel a whole lot better. But not only that, but also I try and take my mind off things if I can, or try new things. I do a lot of reading as well. I used to really love reading autobiographies, sports autobiographies. But for me, I want to try and do things differently. I know this might sound daft, but I've started reading my wife's books. She likes an author called Kimberly Chambers, I think it's called. And it's all about London gangsters and things like that. And, I'm really into it. There's loads of action in it, to be honest with you. So it's a case of, even though you're lying down a lot and not doing much, trying to occupy your mind as well. And then if you do feeling low, talk to someone, and don't just let the feelings get to you and bring you down further. Get it off your chest as soon as you can.
Great advice. Ian, thank you so much. Hopefully this has been useful and helpful to you as well today as a means of talking to someone else outside the house. I'm certainly getting a lot out of doing these for that very reason, and learning a bit more about you guys as well, because there's always little bits of information and backstory that I hadn't appreciated or wasn't aware of. So thank you ever so much for your time today. I think just to finish up, just to maybe lighten the ending of this, I'm going to return to a question that Dr. Alan Johnston, one of our trustees, asked in one of the early at-home withs. And that is, if you were stuck in a lift, Ian, with any one of your State of Mind colleagues, who would you hope it would be?
Oh, wow.
And why?
You know what? I wouldn't mind that, any of them, to be honest with you. But if you had to choose one, I'd probably say Malcolm Ray, because the toss-up probably between him and Phil, but with Malcolm, he just makes me laugh whenever I see him. I don't know what it is. Don't get me wrong, he can be stern at times, Malcolm. He can tell you what he thinks. He's not shy telling you what he thinks, but he just reminds me of the guy from Mary Poppins, the guy who laughs a lot, who ends up getting into the top of the ceiling. I don't know what it is, it just reminds me of him, and he's always cracking jokes or trying to crack jokes, so he just makes me laugh. It'd have to be Malcolm, definitely.
Great answer. We can't have Phil taking a clean sweep of these. Ian, thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate your time, and listen, all the best to you and the family. Stay safe, and I hope the next few weeks kind of don't drag, and that you're back out there doing what you do soon. And again, thank you from all of us for everything you have done already for State of Mind.
Oh, thank you, Owen. Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it. Thanks
Cheers,
a lot.
Ian. All the best, mate.
Thanks for having me on. Cheers, mate. Bye.